up, gamers? I'm Jason.
I'm Julie.
And today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be reviewing Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons, published by Ravensburger and designed by Prospero Hall. With that being said, Julie's now going to tell you more about the game itself.
It's a cooperative game that plays 2 to 5 players. It's intended for ages 10 and above and should take about 45 to 60 minutes to play.
I think that definitely varies a little bit, though, depending on your enemy. I would have to agree that with Ares, it's definitely about 45 to 60 minutes. Felt a little bit longer when we played Circe.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say less. I was going to say you have a tendency to underestimate the length of games.
Hey.
but yes.
I do not underestimate the length of games.
Yes, you do.
So what are you going to be doing in the game? Well, that will vary depending on the enemy that you select, but you are essentially going to be moving around the island of Themyscira, taking on the role of one of 5 different Amazons, and you must defend the island from the enemy. You have the options of facing off against Ares, Cheetah, and Circe. Each of them plays a little bit differently, whereas Ares is going to be assaulting the island directly and you must defeat him. Cheetah is trying to steal artifacts for her own benefit, and Circe is trying to take control of the island by polymorphing your allies, turning them into wolves and pigs, and you have to sort of move them around the island while still being able to defeat her. Now, did I miss anything, Julie?
I think you got it covered.
So what time is it then?
Well, it's time to grab our drinks.
Grab our best friend.
We're going to take it to the table.
And take it to the table. I thought you were going to say Amazon for a second. I was going to be like, I'm sorry, I'm definitely not an Amazon.
No, but I wore my Wonder Woman stars.
There you go. Keep it right here. We'll be right back. Now let's take a look at the components for Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons. Now we'll start with the game board. So one thing I do like about the board, and it's similar to Horrified, you've got just a little bit of flavor to it, as well as seeing Princess Diana on the back. Now, you do get all of her, actually, which is very cool. And we get a board of the island of Themyscira. We'll just start at the top and move up. So as you can see, you get the entire island. You've got a track for your defense over here on the left, and the enemy's health track over here on the right. So that's what you get for the game board. Now, let's just continue moving down what we've got over here on the left side. And let's take a look at the characters. So we do have 5 characters. You've got an action slot for each of them, as you'll have 3 actions during the course of the game, character's name, and then their special ability that can be done during the strategize phase. So we have Diana, Artemis, Nubia, Mala, and Philippus. And we'll move back to Diana since she is Wonder Woman. Now, each of our heroes do come with a miniature, and I do love the fact just sort of the shading in the plastic. And if you notice, there's a lot of detail on these minis. Probably the best ones I've seen from Ravensburger yet. So here we've got Diana, Princess of the Amazons. Next, we've got Artemis, followed by Nubia. Very cool. I love the sword. Also, they did a really good job. If you notice, there's not that much bend to any of these longer components. Here we've got Mala, and once again, you can just see the level of detail in the skirt and also in the hair. If you're a painter, you can really do some good stuff with these miniatures. Then lastly, here we have Philippus with her spear and shield. She doesn't seem as detailed. There's still quite a lot of detail on her armor. So if you like painting, I can definitely recommend these 5 minis. Now, that's not the only thing we have for our heroes. We've got a stack of hero cards, which we'll take a look at in a moment. We have the Sword of Hephaestus and its 4 blessings. Now, Sword of Hephaestus is only used when you're facing Ares. We also do have here the reference cards, and there's enough for all 5 players. One thing that we didn't really love is that Circe's reference card is on the back of the round phases card. So that's just a little annoying. But you do get an idea as how you're going to play the game with the start of round, where you'll follow the enemy section. You'll then strategize together, dealing cards using your special ability. Then battle begins where you play cards, you will take your actions, and then the end of round where the enemy will attack. Now here we've got the reference cards. As all enemies play a little differently, you'll see what your special actions can do or what your basic actions, because basic actions are considered to be move and deploy warrior. So as you can see, you can use movement to remove blockades in Ares' case. Also, how to deal 1 damage to an enemy. So as you can see, we've got Ares, Circe. Her things are different with magic beacons, wolf Amazon, pig Amazons, and it's a little harder to deal damage to her. Then, of course, we've got the cheetah, who can wound Amazons. She's got some lycanthropes. She's got her own hunting parties, and she's got her own thing when you're trying to deal damage to her. Now, let's take a look at the hero cards that we've got here. Now, these cards here are all the same. Well, there's a certain amount of them, but as you can see, there's lots of duplicates. So we've got Swift, which is all about movement. You get 1 vigor for movement. Here we've got our command or leadership for the star, or vigor. And then here we've got our tactical, our knowledge, that can be used to deal with, converted Amazons, corrupted Amazons, or some nasty magical effects from Circe. We also have nimble, bold, and you'll notice that this card bold does have some bolded text here. And what that means is, well, you got a special action compared to Swift, who just has some flavor text. Another card where you're going to see bolded out text. Just try to see if I can find it in here. Well, here's one of them. So we've got powerful, which will let you double the emblems of one other hero in the enemy's region. So keep that in mind. The sequence that you play out these action cards to take them will matter very much as you're playing the game. We also have the 8 artifacts. Now, only 4 of them will ever be in play. They all do something different. Each of them essentially doubles the emblems of a specific card. So the Girdle of Gaia doubles nimble, the Battle Tiara doubles resourceful, and the Spear of Athena will double confident. Some of the other ones, for example, the Golden Armor, will give you special rules such as you may move directly to the enemy. Now the enemy means any of these 3 villains. The Lasso of Truth means you can pull obstacles with you when you're moving. Braces of Deflection will protect you from obstacles and warriors in your region that may not be replaced or converted. So you're going to get a few different varieties of relics as you're playing, the game. Now, Artemis' special ability, she'll start with 1. So take a look at the rulebook. It's a good segue, as the rulebook itself will have a few pointers for different setup rules. So it does mention what you need to do if you're playing Artemis, as you can see in I believe it's right there, step 3 of the rule book. You get your overall how to play, explanation of just the basic rules. Now, if you do want to play someone other than Ares, because this whole rule book is set up to teach you how to play Ares, instructions for the other enemies are on page 14 and 15. And then you just got a quick appendix of certain things on the back. So that is the rule book. Now, just to wrap up everything with the relics, you do have tokens for the relics as they will be placed on the board in specific areas. So as you can see right there, the Girdle of Gaia says Colosseum on it, meaning you'll place the girdle in the Colosseum. You must end your turn there to acquire it. These are 2 tracker tokens to track your defense and the enemy's life. Now, we'll take a quick look at the enemies themselves. So we do have Ares. Now you'll see that he's got a different start of the round effect. He'll actually wound he'll convert Amazons. It's Cheetah that wounds them. He'll also summon his Servants of War. And at the end of the round, when they'll attack, you follow these steps in sequence. You can see that different things can really, really damage you. So you can lose 1 defense, lose 2 defense, or even lose 3 defense for each region with 5 or more obstacles. So it can be very, very challenging. Now, if you take a look at Cheetah, you'll notice that her thing is different. She'll start by deploying a lycanthrope to her region. Then you'll follow the same steps as you would with a regular enemy, which is draw a card, move the enemy, and then resolve the next card's effect. Now, what you'll see here is you'll notice that it says for 2 players and 4 players. If you're playing with 3 or 5 players, flip the card over and you'll have what you need to do for those higher player counts. Then once again, an end of round effect. Now we also have Cersei. And just to point out, the health is there for the enemies. You also then have her start a round effect, which is different. She'll be deploying a pig Amazon to her region. She's really just on the island, polymorphing everybody. You also have a little bit of a different setup with her, as you only lose defense if you've got multiple regions with the wolf and pig Amazons in them, and you can lose up to 3 defense with both. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get into the setup. I'm not going to pick up the tokens. You can see them right here, Ares. So just really standard standees for the 3 villains. Now, each enemy has their own deck of cards, which is a little different depending on who you're playing. You'll see the effect. You also see the location. So during an enemy's phase, you're going to reveal it, put them to that location, then reveal the next card, and then follow what's on the card. And that's for a 2-player game. So you'll notice you'll deploy 2 converted Amazons to Ares region, and then all of them, so after they're deployed, will then move 1 region towards the palace. But you can see a different version of the card. Formidable has some different text on it. And it's the same with all of the enemies. One of the differences, Cheetah, though, who has these artifacts that she's trying to acquire, which have some pretty nasty effects. Now, if you cycle through her deck 3 times, meaning 3 artifacts get shuffled into the deck, well, you then lose the game. And lastly, we've got Cersei. Just take a quick look at her cards. So she's all about these magic towers, which will defend her. So you can see Arcane, nasty effect. Draw a card and deploy 3 of the purple cubes, the magic towers, to that region. Then you replace all warriors in that region with some of those pig Amazons, because she polymorphs them all. Not fun. Now we've got the different cubes. So we've got the green cubes, orange cubes, and purple cubes. They'll represent different things depending on what enemy you're facing. Now each cube is considered to be unlimited, which is why you do have 3 times, 5 times multipliers, just so that you can remind yourself. You can either just use this as 5 cubes, or if you want, place a cube on it. Remember, it's 5 cubes. Completely up to you what you want to do. And these white cubes are standard. They represent other Amazon warriors on the island. So there you have it. We've taken a look at the components for Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons. Now keep it right here, as we're going to be coming back at you, and we'll teach you how to set up and play the game. Now let's teach you how to set up Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons. So we're going over a setup with Ares as our enemy. So first things first, we will take the 2 tracking tokens and set them up. The Amazon defense will start at 20 with Ares' health at 15, as listed on the back of the card. Now you notice that there is a way to make it more difficult. So for 2 to 4 players. So just to give you an example, you can set it up to 18 if you are playing with 4 players. Next, we will take the 2 miniatures for our heroes. We've chosen Diana and Artemis. They will start in the palace. Now, for the start of the game, 1 hero is designated as wielding the sword of Hephaestus. In this case, it will be Diana. We must take then the 4 blessings and set them in the 4 temples of the gods. Well, temples, monuments. And in order to defeat Ares, his final point of damage must be done by the hero wielding the sword of Hephaestus. In this case, it will be Diana, the princess of the Amazons. Now we need to follow the special setup instructions for Artemis, where we will take the 8 relics, we shuffle them up, we will then select 2. So we have the golden armor and the spear of Athena. We will then select 1, which will be Artemis' starting relic. The next ones, well, these other 7 here, are reshuffled, and then we will take 4 of them. We'll reveal which 4 to make sure that we just have those tokens available The other tokens will be returned to the box. So we will need the Battle Tiara, Amulet of Harmonia, the Golden Armor, as well as the Girdle of Gaia. We will not need the token for the Spear of Athena, as it's already in Artemis's possession. The rest of these can then be returned to the game box. So we'll just stack these up. We now have Ares, who is going to be entering into play. Now, I'm going to move these as I've made just a little bit more room now. Should have a nice space for discards right next to the deck. We'll stack these up right here, and they'll come into play as needed. And basically, we've now set up the game for the most part. We will just need to take our relics, the 4 relics, and get a nice mix into our hero deck. Now I'll do a little bit more shuffling of the deck off camera. And what I will do is keep the deck on camera for right now, but I'm probably going to just have it off camera. Easier for me to deal cards in front of the hero so that you'll see what they have. And there you have it. This is how you set up Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons. So keep it right here. I will be coming back at you to teach you how to take on Ares. Now let's go over how you're going to play Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons. So we have our 2 heroes on the board. We have yet to place our villain on the board. We've set up his health. We've got our round reference card as well as his reference card. Our hero cards are here, which I'm going to be just now moving off camera. Now the way this works is at the start of the round, we must draw a card. We will ignore the effect of the card. So we ignore everything about Obstinate, except for what it says here, which is Monument to Hermes. The card goes in the discard pile, and we shall place Ares at the Monument to Hermes. Next, you'll draw a second card. Now, if we were 4 players, we would draw 3. You will check the reverse of this Ares sheet for the conditions on 3 and 5 players. Now we have this card Threatening, which will now deploy 3 orange cubes, which in the case of Ares stands for Servant of War. You'll place 3 of them in the woods. Now, what we're going to need to try to accomplish this round, potentially do some damage to Ares, pick up some of the blessings of Hephaestus. It's a good opportunity for Diana to go after Ares, as he's already in the Monument to Hermes. Great way to acquire a blessing. But if we do not successfully defeat everyone in the woods, we will lose 1 defense. Now, the way the game works is we have our strategize phase. And depending on the hero, you will get 2 cards. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it is Philippus who gets 3 cards dealt to her face up. So we'll deal 2 cards face up to Diana, which is interesting, and 2 cards face up to Artemis. Now, this is actually great because we now have to make a decision. And it's actually a difficult decision, but we've got both of the relics. Now, I probably didn't do the best job shuffling, but that's okay because we now have different options. We have the choice of taking the relic and putting it into play, meaning we'll need to have access to the card. So, for example, I could just stack it right over there. We'd place the Girdle of Gaia in its location at the Colosseum, meaning will come into play. Or we can choose to discard it. Don't worry, you're going to go through the hero cards again and draw another card, which is the Golden Armor. So clearly I didn't do a great shuffling job. So we'll just put that at the bottom of the deck, reshuffle it up a little bit, and we'll take another card. So in this case, though, as the woods is a location where we need to go, and that is the location for the Amulet of Harmonia. That is going to go into play with the woods. This card will be discarded. So for the moment, what I'm going to do is just put this card off camera below Artemis. The Girdle of Gaia is discarded. We will then take the token and place it in the woods. As we discarded the Girdle of Gaia, it is not in play. We are now in what's known as the strategize phase, where we can discuss our options and how we would like to approach resolving the threats to the island. Now, right now, if we'd like to deal damage to Ares, we must spend 4 of a specific resource. Now, with Persistent, unfortunately, Diana will not be able to do that. She would have to get a Warrior, which allows you to boost a special action. Actions that cannot be boosted, which are regular actions, which are Move and the Leadership emblem right there. So just keep that in mind. Now we've got Adaptable, which gives us 2 Vigor, 2 Movement, 2 of the Leadership. We have Tactical, which is 3 of the Knowledge. Now Tactical here has a special ability, is that if 2 or more heroes play the same cards on the same action. So this really only comes into play more often with like 3, 4, 5 player games, meaning let's say for action 2, you reveal Tactical and we've got 2 or 3 players that played Persistent as their second action, whether we get to double their emblems. But right now, as you can see, with Adaptable, Artemis will at least be able to get to the woods, so that's not such a bad situation. And if we take a look at what Diana is able to do during the strategize phase, she may move 1 area, meaning if she does get some leadership, she will be able to damage Ares and acquire this blessing. So I think we've got a plan. We'll have Diana go after Ares while Artemis is going to do her best to get to the woods. Now you may be wondering, what the heck are we doing with only 1 card for Diana in this case, 2 cards for Artemis? Well, the next cards are dealt face down. The players may no longer discuss their actions. They can just play them. So Diana is in the Colosseum because of the ability to move. If we take a look at what we have here, unfortunately, we really did not get the cards that we wanted. This is not going to be a very good turn for her. At this point, we won't be able to do any damage to Ares. We might be better off actually backing up Artemis in the woods. Now, if we take a look at what Artemis's cards are, well, she definitely got a much better set, but another Tactical, still not that much damage. It's really not a good setup for either hero, but that is part of the challenge of the game. Now, one thing that I am going to do, just because we got the same cards, and I'd like to show you how to damage Ares, teach you also how to use Warriors. So I'm going to just swap the bolds that the heroes have in order to showcase just some of the different things we're going to be doing. Now, that's something that you cannot do in the game. Don't copy me. I just did that because it's going to let me teach you the game better. So now we'll take a look at what the actions are. Well, in this case of Diana, she's going to want to play bold first because you will double this card's emblem if it's your first action, meaning she can summon some warriors, which will be a very good thing. She's then wants to do some damage and also be able to move. So her second action is going to have to be the movement with Nimble. And then we're going to use Persistent as her third action. I know we're covering up some of that stuff. It's not that big of a deal. And just for expediency, normally we wouldn't discard this stuff right away. You do it at the end of the round. I'm just going to place this into the discard pile. As I'm playing solo, I know what all the cards are. Now, in the case of Artemis, well, we need to move. It's going to be at least 2 movement. So that will unfortunately have to be our first card. So we'll play Adaptable for 2 movement. Then we want to deal damage. And for a Servant of War, it takes 2 swords, 2 vigor to get rid of them. Didn't get anything that I could double. Now, one thing I will just take a look at and show you, as we do have the Spear of Athena. If I'd gotten confident, I would be able to double the emblems on this card. Now, don't worry, we're going to teach you how to resolve the emblems, how they work, in just a second. So once again, we're not using these 2 tactical cards. They would then go into the discard pile. All right, so now it's time for us to start taking actions. Now you can alternate whatever hero thinks they've got the best action. So for example, if you do have something like Powerful, and everything goes off in a sequence, but Powerful will let you double the emblems of one other hero in the enemy's region, so it can't be yourself. Let's say at the start of the turn, Diana was in the region. If someone had played Powerful first, they'd probably want to be the first player to be able to then double her emblems. So remember that this comes into effect on an action afterwards. So you got to play it first. She can't move, do her thing, and then you can play this to double that effect. Double that emblem after the fact. The only thing that's a little different is tactical, as if 2 players happen to play tactical, you get to double those emblems. Now we'll place those back. Let's take a look at resolving these actions. So we'll start with Diana, who plays Bold, and she gets to double the emblem. So we can only use 1 emblem at a time. We're not using this one, we are using the leadership one. We are able to recruit 4 warriors. Now Artemis must resolve her action, which is adaptable, meaning she's going to move into the woods. Next, we'll resolve Artemis's second action. Fortunately, this is not her first action. We cannot double the emblem. She's using 2 swords to remove 1 servant of war. For her second action, Diana has up to 3 movement. She's only moving 1 into the space. Now it's important to remember, you cannot split your emblems up. So meaning, for example, let's say we had blockade, and a whole bunch of variety of things that you can use. Well, it's not really a case with this, but for example, like Cersei, you can use the vigor for multiple things. You can only handle 1 color at a time. You can't, for example, let's say a blockade required 3 vigor instead of 3 movement. You couldn't spend 5 vigor to remove both of them. It's only one or the other. In the case of Ares, you don't have to worry about that. Each of these cubes takes a different emblem. So lastly, we're going to flip over the last card, which is Nimble for 2 damage. And then we flip over Diana's last card, which is 3 damage on, 3 vigor. So we need to spend up to 4 of one type to deal damage to Ares. Now, we have a choice. We can spend 1 warrior to make that a 4, or 3 warriors to make that a 4. Obviously, we're going to spend the 1 warrior, but be careful. Ares can corrupt our warriors. So we spend 1, makes that emblem 4, and we deal A damage to Ares. It is now the end of the round, so we'll just clean up the action cards. So the enemy will attack, but before that, we have ended our actions, so our actions are over. So we may acquire the items that are in the locations. We would get the first blessing on the Sword of Hephaestus. We acquire the Amulet of Harmonia. So we'll just place them like this so you can just see what the amulet does. Next, we'll resolve our end of round effects. So we would lose 1 defense for each servant of war on the map. Now we're going to go through 1 more round of the game. You've actually taken a look at every emblem. You've seen us summon. You've seen us move. Well, you haven't actually seen us use knowledge to remove any corrupted Amazon warriors. We don't have any of those yet. So let's see what's going to happen with Ares. So we reveal the first card. He would move to the shore. Next, we reveal the second card, where we would deploy 2 corrupted Amazons in the barracks. Now, if we had left any warriors behind, one thing's important to note, when Diana moved here, I could have left some warriors there for another hero to pick up. If Artemis, let's say, passing through to the library, she could have then picked up just 1 if she wanted. Kind of like traveling in packs, though, at least in a 2-player game. So, for example, if we'd had 3 warriors in this location, we'd spawn those 2 purple. no, then convert them into corrupted Amazons. So now we'll just get rid of those. Now we don't have to do anything else with our corrupted Amazons. They do not move, but they're not a priority as well. Priority would be if they're in the palace. Because if they're in the palace, each one of them would deal us 2 damage. So as you can see, 4 damage from 19. Plus we're going to take, we drop down to 15 if they're in the palace at the end of the turn. So something that we're going to want to think about dealing with. Now once again, we deal 2 cards. Well, actually, there is something that I didn't do properly, so we're going to quickly go back. Now these 2 cards actually are face down in Diana's battle plan. You can discuss them a little bit during the strategize phase because her last card was persistent, was that you draw 2 cards into your battle plan for the next round. So she has 2 extra cards to use this turn. So we'll start with Diana. You'll deal 2 cards face up, nimble and experienced. And then deal 2 cards face up, nimble and swift. Now, just looking at what we'd want to do. Right now, Artemis ideally wants to take someone out in the woods and then potentially move 1, 2, 3, and maybe do something in the barracks if possible. Diana may actually want to move. She's got the 3. We've got 3 warriors. She could boost that action and clean up everything in the barracks. So we've got a few options here, but it's really going to depend on what our face down cards are. Well, she's got swift and persistent, meaning she can get another hit in on Ares if she so chose, or try to get to the Temple of Aphrodite. What I'm actually going to do now is, depending on the cards, and we'll take a look at them, I think I'm going to have both of them try to join up and attack Ares, because I want to show you how you can potentially team up. Now, so our discussion is basically going to be Artemis attacks, moves, attacks. So we'll try to get our 3rd action here to be a team up action between both of the characters. Now let's deal the 3 face down cards. Oh, so we go these ones here. And now we'll just take a look at them. So we've got Steadfast, which is double if it's your 3rd action in the game. So we're going to play Artemis's 3rd action here. She can use Nimble or Swift, it doesn't matter. She's only moving to the shore. And we can start with Bold just because it's fun and we get to double it, but these 2 will not be used. They will go in our discard pile. So now we'll take a look at what we want to do with Diana. Now it's possible we could even double up hits, because remember, it's 4 of any emblem, right? So obviously we want to probably use Persistent at the end, as it's our strongest attack. We have Swift, which is going to let us move. We may be able to get another hit in on Ares as well. So let's go ahead and use Resourceful in the middle there. And we'll get rid of these other cards. Now quickly, I'm going to just go pick up Tactician from our discard pile just to show you guys. Now if, for example, the plan had been otherwise and we'll do it with Diana. Diana was going to move. We can leave the words behind. Or let's say we take them with us. If this was the plan and we had this card, she could spend Tactical to use 3 to remove a Corrupted Amazon, boost it for another 3. Once you boost with Amazons, as you saw, they go back into the pile, and then we would remove those Corrupted Amazons from the board. But that's not our battle strategy right now, so we'll put her back at the monument. We've got our 3, and let's probably go through this turn. This will be the last turn we show you before we go on to our review of the game. So we'll start with Swift. So Diana will move 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we got exactly enough movement to get her to the shore. Next, we can double the symbols. Doesn't really matter. We do defeat the Servant of War in the woods. Now, we would like Artemis to join us, so she will go next, joining us in the shore. You'll then attack areas with Resourceful and spend 2 of our warriors in order to deal 1 damage to Ares. Now we can discuss teaming up. Now as we're teaming up, we can combine our totals together. Now, this is Steadfast. I was able to double this card's emblems. So this is actually a 4 right now, meaning we're going to be dealing 1 damage. With Persistent, we're going to be dealing not enough for 1 damage. So Diana can spend a warrior and we'll be dealing 2 damage to Ares. Now, in this situation, we didn't really have to team up. Let's say, for example, I'll remove Steadfast. Let's say I'd played Adaptable. That's when we'd really want to team up because we get 3 and 5 teaming up together. We would have at least done 1 damage to Ares. So it's very valuable. And if you are fighting Cersei, who can be very difficult, and you want to deal multiple damage to her in 1 shot, having a lot of warriors teaming up together is definitely the way you want to play the game. So that being said, we've now taught you the basics of how to play Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons. Now keep it right here as Julie and I will be coming at you with our review of the game. So Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons. What did you think of the game?
Well, first of all, I thought it was pretty sweet that you went out to get this for me because you know I like Wonder Woman. So thank you for that.
Yes, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. Normally, I would have picked it up in the US. Luckily enough, we are able to often get games shipped to the US. However, we just would not have been able to go pick it up in any type of timely manner. We were able to order it on Amazon.com for delivery in Canada. It wasn't overly expensive. Probably maybe just a little bit more than what it would have cost if we'd waited for it to be released. Currently, this is only available at the big market retailers, if I'm not mistaken. I've yet to see it in any friendly local game store or even on some of the bigger online places. We found this on Amazon.com, and I believe you can get it through Target, but don't quote me on that. Now, we definitely overpaid for it a little bit, but we'll talk about the value of the game as we continue our discussion. Just wanted to let you know a little bit about the story since we are based up in Canada. I think there's one thing that we would both agree on right now, since I told that long story. Is the game worth importing to Canada right away, or should people just wait until it gets released, probably in about 4 to 5 months, similar to Horrified?
Well, I would say in the current context of maybe wanting to play a game with your kids 10 and above, because I think that's a pretty good age, maybe 9. I think then it'd definitely be worth it. I really enjoyed it. I think it's, and we'll get into it, maybe a little bit on the less complex side and a little bit easier than some of the other games that we've played. But right now, that's kind of what I'm looking for. So I really enjoyed the fact that it's not very hard to play. You do have to think, though. I mean, we could have lost a couple times as well. So long version of saying, yeah, I think if you like Wonder Woman and you're looking for something cooperative to play, I think this is definitely something that you might want to bring in now.
Well, on that note, it will take a little bit longer since there are some delays, but also since you do not know the price of the game, and I know the price of the game, I will definitely tell you, do not import this game. It is not worth it right now.
I never know the price of games.
Let me put it this way, just to give you an idea. It costs significantly more than Horrified. And Horrified is a game that we've greatly enjoyed, also by Ravensburger, also by the same designer. I think that Horrified right now, if you're looking for something that you can get, would be a better pickup. That being said, I'm going to agree with Julie. If you like Wonder Woman, this is definitely family friendly. Also, there is a lot of difference in the plays, just playing the different Amazons as well as the different enemies. This is something that you should look at picking up. I just don't think I can justify the cost of, let's just put into context, another smaller game to bring it in right away. As we're doing reviews, it was worth it for us. So as you know, we both enjoyed the game. I'll let Julie continue talking a little bit about it. Why don't you talk about the Amazons and our experience against some of those enemies?
Yeah, well, I first of all, the minis, I like the minis. I thought they were pretty cool.
And I have to admit, compared to Horrified, that had very simplified minis. These are high quality miniatures. Definitely impressed with them. They look great. They could be painted. And I think that's a nice touch by Ravensburger in a DC game. This is a game that's for comic book fans who love minis, figures, paints, a lot of detail. And they definitely did that very well.
So that being said, I also like the different Amazons that are available and that they all have a different power, let's say we can call it, or ability. The 3 that I played definitely all had something that they could contribute, and I can see how some could be more appropriate against different villains. I did enjoy, and you touched on it already, so I won't talk too much about it. I did enjoy that each of the villains made you have to play a little differently.
I'd say a lot differently, actually. So you can definitely talk about it. Give it more detail. I don't think we need to just say they play differently.
Well, I mean, the idea is the same. They do 3 different types of damage to you, right? That you have to try to manage. And I think managing is a good word for it. You have to manage the board differently depending on which villain that you're playing. In one case, the damage that was being done directly to the island meant that you had to get things done much more quickly and had to let some damage happen to you in order to be able to do damage directly to the villain. And in this case, I'm talking about Ares.
Yeah. Where Cheetah was very different, where we didn't get a lot of damage to the island, but the danger with her is you got to manage the different things that show up on the board that will let her cycle her deck, because once she cycled her deck 3 times and you've added these different very powerful artifacts to it, you will lose the game. So it was just sort of interesting, and we'll talk about sort of the different difficulty levels of the enemies. Also, I think there's a lot of variability in terms of player count as well.
Yeah, and I think in this case, it feels like it's easier 2-player.
Yes.
We haven't played it 4-player, but...
No, we only played with 1 Amazon each. And I want to give a shout out to the Nashville board game guy, follows us on Instagram and also the channel. He did talk to me about the experiences of playing with 3 players. He said it was significantly harder. And if we take a look at on those enemies, when you go from 2 players to 3 players, you're drawing a full extra card. So I can definitely see how the difficulty can ramp up depending on the enemy that you're facing and the type of cards that they're drawing. The other thing is, I think your Amazons will play a large effect on, will have a large effect on how difficult it will be. Because characters like Mala, where I think in a game when you're fighting against Ares, even though she's creating warriors, the fact that they can be turned could be very negative when you're drawing 3 or 4 cards, where if you're playing a character like Cheetah or fighting against Cersei, those warriors are a lot harder to be turned against you, and it can be a really valuable asset in terms of defeating them.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I don't have much more to offer. Like we said, this game learns very easily. That's an asset for a lot of people, I think. And also, like I said, there are times where you're looking for a game that's, fairly easy to play and doesn't require, it's not a brain buster. In this case, this is definitely not a brain buster, but I had a lot of fun and can see taking this out on a weeknight when I'm maybe a little bit more tired and, but you don't want to watch TV.
Yes, no, I definitely enjoy the game. I think it's be a solid addition to anyone's collection if they love Wonder Woman. If you just like Wonder Woman, if you're a comic books fan, you get a lot of the feel, I find, of the movie itself, even though it's not really based on the movie. It's far more based on the comic books with characters like Cheetah and Cersei. But being set on the island of Themyscira, focusing on the Amazons, it's something different that I wouldn't have expected to see from, like a comic book game. I would expect to maybe see Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, maybe a mix like that, something that you would get in the DC deck building game. But they've done something different here, and I really want to commend the game for it. I mean, this is a game with all female characters, and I really enjoy that. It's set on Themyscira, it's thematic, it works.
Actually, the only guy is Ares.
The only guy is Ares, and that makes sense. I mean, they tried to cram in someone like Steve Trevor, I'd probably be knocking the game for it, because he's definitely not an Amazon. Cool pilot, cool character, not an Amazon. So I also enjoy the fact that your components can be used for multiple things, and it gives a little bit of flavor between all the different villains, so that was really well done. And the design, as Julie said, it's straightforward. It was not that difficult for me to cheat. To
cheat?
No. To teach.
And you heard it here first.
I do not cheat.
You said it.
In any case, to teach, well, if you want to see me cheating, you actually saw a little bit of in the how to play in terms of showing you some stuff. So, it does happen in terms of teaching games, because sometimes you want to show a specific thing on a video. In any case, not that difficult to teach, and it's something that you can even play, I think, with kids that are even younger than, and like, I'm thinking like 7 is about as far as you could go down. But it would depend. I mean, it's fairly straightforward in terms of iconography as well, which goes a long way. So depending on if you've, brought up your kid in a gamer household where they're used to things like this, I'm sure that they would be able to handle it. Now, taking someone that's not familiar with games and iconography, you would not be able to play this with a 7-year-old. But like I said, in the right environment, you could definitely skew a little younger than that 9, 10 years old, I think, easily.
So, I mean, the only thing I would say, if we go to the a little bit on the negative or the complaints that I might have with the game, the hero deck of cards is not fun to shuffle. They are flimsy cards, and
well, all the cards are flimsy. So I think that's one thing that we do need to say. Component quality, board quality, great. Cardboard quality, no problems. Cards, hero boards, enemy boards, big thumbs down. Even though the cards feel similar to Horrified, they're terrible. Like, they are just really, really bad quality. And that's part of the reason why I say don't import the game. Get Horrified. Get something that's already local here, because you're paying for something that I don't think... You'd be paying a lot more and not getting any type of quality from it. But they have stepped up the quality game on the minis. But the reason why we're saying that the quality is so terrible, the game is literally left out, dry room, no humidity, like no air conditioning, nothing. Everything worked except for the enemy cards. And it was left out overnight. And we even took a break, and what was about an hour or 2 hours between plays. And the stuff that we'd left out, the new Amazon hero cards that we left out, started warping, which is something that is just not really what I expect when I'm buying a game for components to get like that. I expect it maybe as a manufacturing defect, something that it comes out of the box like that, or I left it out on a humid day or in the sun, but that just wasn't the case with this. It was really left out overnight until about, 9 a.m.?
Yeah, overnight.
Yeah, so not good quality. This is a game that requires sleeves just to make your shuffling experience better.
Well, if you care what the card's going to end up looking like, because when we're shuffling, I could tell that it was, if you had to shuffle carefully if you didn't want to damage the card, basically.
Yeah, or potentially scrape off some of the coloring. So I would say highly recommend, if this is the kind of game that's going to be coming up often, if you're going to be playing this as well with younger players, you might want to invest in protecting it. That being said, I haven't got any sleeves for it yet. As soon as I'm able to go get some sleeves and not pay an insane price, which is all we're seeing on Amazon.ca, well, this game will be sleeves. So really enjoy the game, but the component quality does definitely lower some of it, in my opinion. You'd get a higher score if it had better components. So I think we're down to the end of our review here, Julie. What did you think about...
Well, since you were talking about your score, why don't you go first?
Why don't I go first? I'm going to give it a 7. I definitely think that this game could have got up to that 7.58. The fact that I'm actually considering laminating the hero boards and even the enemy boards just to protect them for the long term. And then I'm going to go invest in card sleeves. Definitely brings it down to a 7. I was almost irritated enough to go lower, but the gameplay is good. We've had a lot of fun. And the quality of the minis definitely keeps my score at a 7. Oh, one other thing that I want to mention that I was a little disappointed with. Great minis. Would have loved to have some villain miniatures as well. Now, another shout out to the Nashville Board Game Guy. If you want to get some villain miniatures, HeroClix. Not that expensive. You can find Cersei, Ares, and Cheetah to add to the game.
So I actually have the same rating as you. It's a 7. For me, it's, there's minis, there's colorful blocks, the board's nice. I would expect that from Ravensburger, I guess. If they can make puzzles, they can definitely make board.
Yes, and they made Horrified, and you really enjoyed Horrified.
And I enjoyed this gameplay. So for me, it's definitely, it's a 7. It's a solid game edition, and it's an IP that I enjoy. So.
No, this is definitely a game that I think we both agree. Once it's available in Canada, or if you're making a trip down to the US for our Canadian brethren, you should look at picking up Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons. With that being said, Julie, what should people be doing now?
Well, they can like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified when we have new content for you.
Also, down below in the video description, you will find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see pictures of us playing Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons, they will be there. You can also maybe see some upcoming games, stuff that gets delivered in the mail, any hot Kickstarters that we may be backing. Also, popping up in front of me right about now will be a link to our previous video, our most recent one, and a link back, since I've mentioned it so many times, to our review of Horrified.
And now it's time to grab our drinks.
Our best friend.
Gonna keep playing games.
Gonna keep playing games. Gonna keep playing this one. I wonder, though, with the way it's built, maybe we'll see some enemy expansions. Maybe some expansions with some enemy miniatures. I'd like that.